You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynne Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 7th of October 2013. Theresa May to answer to Keith Vaz over Nasal Libi. Police blunders let 1,300 suspected criminals walk free. Pork gelatin halts Scotland flu nasal vaccine for school children. UK refuses group entry to France's Syrian refugees. Society-wise prefer Greek Isles for illicit affairs. George Soros. The Euro crisis might be over, but Europe's nightmare is getting worse. Far right stuns France in by-election vote. Kerry. Assad deserves credit for honouring weapons agreement. Typhoon Fitao froze eastern China into chaos. Thought for the day, strangers in our own lands. And finally, 72 virgins. UK news. Theresa May to answer to Keith Vaz over Nasal Libi. Home Secretary Theresa May is to be questioned by MPs over why one of the world's most wanted Al-Qaeda terror suspects, captured by US Navy SEALs, was given asylum in Britain. Nasal Libi, who was seized at the weekend in the Libyan capital Tripoli, arrived in Britain in the mid-1990s and lived in Manchester after being granted political asylum, according to reports. The 49-year-old was later accused by the US of involvement in the 1998 American embassy bombings in East Africa, which killed more than 220 people. Al-Libi, also known as Nazir Abdul Hamad al-Rukai, was arrested by the Metropolitan Police the following year but was released and later fled to Britain. Detectives are believed to have found an Al-Qaeda manual at his home which advised Osama bin Laden's followers on how to execute terror plots. Keith Vaz, chairman of the Home Affairs Select Committee, said the case will be raised with Mrs May when she appears before MPs. In a statement, the Labour MP said, "This case raises serious questions about the motives behind asylum and national security decisions in the UK. It's not the first time that someone who has been brought to the attention of the authorities and released has gone on to be linked to further terrorist activity. I'll be raising these concerns with the Home Secretary when she appears before the committee on the 15th of October. World to date comments. Excuse me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a Labour government was in power with Jack Straw as Home Secretary when Nasal Libi was welcomed with open arms into Britain. So is Mr Straw going to be recalled to answer to the all-powerful Master Vaz of the Home Affairs Select Committee? Police blunders let 1,300 suspected criminals walk free. More than 1,300 suspected criminals, including alleged rapists, child molesters, violent offenders and at least one murderer, have escaped justice in the past 5 years because of police blunders over arrests. Figures show that errors in paperwork, failure to read suspects their rights or mistakes in the way officers conducted interviews have meant that at least 200 suspects a year walked free without charge. Since 2008, these have included 262 suspected violent criminals and 21 sex offenders, 3 of whom were suspected rapists and 1 of whom was accused of sexually abusing a young boy. Only last month the convicted killer escaped prosecution for a second murder because an officer failed to follow procedures. The official statistics derived from Freedom of Information requests provoked fury. World to date comments. It's amazing how the police fall short when it comes to actually imprisoning these felons. Could it be their ethnicity and the hands-off attitude of our polizei when it comes to non-Brit criminals? Pork gelatin halts Scotland's flu nasal vaccine for school children. Scotland's largest immunisation programme has been delayed after Muslim parents raised concerns that the nasal vaccination contained pork gelatin. The rollout of the flu vaccine nasal spray pilot programme was due to begin at 54 schools in Glasgow on Wednesday. Around 100,000 children from primary schools across Scotland are being offered the nasal spray Fluens. But NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde said the rollout had been postponed until Monday after parents at Glendale Primary in Pollokshields on the south side of Glasgow became aware of the issue. Now parents will be able to request that their child receives the vaccination by injection rather than through the nasal spray. World to date states, what is the difference? Who cares if foreigners get flu? I don't. UK refuses group entry to France's Syrian refugees. British border police on Friday ruled out group entry for some 60 Syrian asylum seekers at the French port of Calais who are trying to enter the UK. British officials said they could only examine the refugee claims on a case-by-case basis. A team of British border police on Friday ruled out a group entry for some 60 Syrian asylum seekers, blocking a gangway at a ferry terminal in the French port of Calais. The three-member team of the border force held talks with the refugees who are desperately trying to get to Britain. But the British officials say they could only examine on a case-by-case basis the requests of those who already had family in Britain, according to Denis Robin, the top government official for France's northern Pas-de-Calais region. World at 8. I simply do not understand these negotiations. They're in France. They should seek asylum in France, not the UK. British officials should not be involved in any negotiations, n'est-ce pas? European news. Society-wise prefer Greek Isles for illicit affairs. Greek islands are the #1 getaway of choice for married women from around the world seeking to have an affair, according to a female client survey by Ashley Madison online dating service. Marketing itself as the world's leading married dating service for discreet encounters, under the slogan "Life is short, have an affair," Ashley Madison conducted the survey among female subscribers to its travelling woman service. A majority of respondents named the eastern Aegean island of Santorini as their favourite spot for an illicit romantic getaway, followed by Mykonos, Crete, Spetsis, Hydra, Los, Paros and Naxos. Travelling Woman offers subscribers the opportunity to choose a destination and then select one among 30 potential lovers in the country they are about to visit, Ashley Madison PR Director Catalina Alpe explained to Greek Reporter. All the women who choose the Greek islands said they were looking for a remote paradise in which to realise their deepest erotic fantasies. Certainly the reputation of Greek men as lovers also played a part. Sandy, 35, is married with no children. "I had a dream vacation and I went back to my husband. I was recharged," she wrote on the Ashley Madison site after her romantic rendezvous on the island of Mykonos. Debbie, 40, went to celebrate her birthday on Santorini with some women friends. "We all experienced unforgettable moments with the boys. It was a wonderful holiday away from husband and children," she enthused. World at 8 comments. "We have enough to say when European women go to Africa for the same thing and men go to Thailand, don't we? Is it the financial kudos that attracts? No doubt these moneyed girls can escape the label of free prostitutes indulging young male prostitutes abroad, but it is still the same currency, sex." George Soros, the euro crisis might be over, but Europe's nightmare is getting worse. Billionaire financier and legendary speculator George Soros gave a speech recently at the Global Economic Symposium in Kiel, Germany, titled "The Future of Europe." The euro crisis has already transformed the European Union into something radically different from what it was originally intended. The EU was meant to be a voluntary association of sovereign and equal states that surrounded part of their sovereignty for the common good. It has turned into a relationship between creditors and debtors that is by its nature compulsory and unequal. When a debtor country gets into difficulties, the creditor countries gain the upper hand. The rules they have established merely perpetuate this state of affairs. That is liable to be politically unacceptable, and it has the potential of destroying the European Union altogether. World at 8. George pulled no punches as he went on to say Germany is the only country able to lead Europe out of crisis. After all, the other Eurozone countries are or appear to be heavily in debt, whilst Germany is the only one operating in the black. But we still need to leave before we cannot afford to stay. Far right stuns France in by-election vote. France's political establishment was left reeling on Monday after two far-right candidates almost claimed 50% of votes in a by-election. A socialist government spokesman called it a warning shot ahead of upcoming municipal elections. In a result that reflected the extreme right's rising popularity, the representative of the Front National, FN, got 40.4% of votes in the first round of Sunday's by-election in the southwest town of Brignoles, while an independent extreme right candidate won 9.1%. The result came in an area where the far right has traditionally done well, but it was nevertheless seen as symbolically significant. For her part, Front National leader Marine Le Pen on Monday declared that Sunday's vote showed the FN is already the main party in France. The FN's support has been rising nationwide, with recent opinion polls suggesting it could take around 16% of votes in municipal elections scheduled for next March. World News. Kerry. Assad deserves credit for honouring weapons agreement. US Secretary of State John Kerry praised Syrian President Bashar al-Assad Monday, saying the news that international disarmament experts have begun dismantling and destroying Syria's chemical weapons arsenal and the equipment used to produce it represented a good beginning, and Assad deserved credit for honouring the terms of a deal reached last month to secure and destroy the regime's weapons. Kerry was speaking at a joint news conference in Bali alongside Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The US and Russia held their first high-level talks on the sidelines of an economic summit to discuss Syria, as well as the onset of an apparent warming between Iran and the West. Kerry said the United States and Russia were very pleased with the progress made so far in destroying Syria's chemical weapons stocks, but added that Assad needed to continue to comply with UN demands. World at 8. It's about time this sleazeball on the world stage for war acknowledges that the Assad regime is living up to its word. Are the US and the Russians insisting on applying the same rules to the so-called rebel factions? Typhoon Fitao throws eastern China into chaos. At least 5 people have died and 3 million impacted by Typhoon Fitao, which barreled into China's east coast early Monday morning, packing winds of more than 200 kilometres, 120 miles per hour. 2 men died in Wenzhou City in Zhejiang province, the official news agency Xinhua said, while 3 people from the city of Ruan died of electric shocks. One of the victims in Wenzhou, 55-year-old Ni Wenlin, died when a strong wind blew him off a hill late Sunday, Xinhua said, while the other, Chen Wanji, was killed after being buried beneath his duck breeding factory. 4 other people are still missing, state media reported. Fitao had affected more than 3 million people in 8 Zhejiang cities as of Monday and caused economic damage of 2.28 billion yuan, $395 million, Xinhua said, citing the Provincial Flood Control Office. Parts of Xinjiang, which neighbours that commercial hub Shanghai, saw nearly 29 centimetres of rain over 17 hours from Sunday to Monday, the official China news service said. Areas in Fujian to the south saw up to 16 centimetres, according to the service. Soldiers from China's vast army are being drafted in to build levees and to help evacuate residents from their homes. Thousands of fishing boats were ordered back to port as the authorities issued the highest warning, a red alert. Thought for the day. Now this is a piece written by IMNOKUFFAR, but I feel it encompasses most of the thoughts of us nationalists and the odd situation we have of now being strangers in our own lands. The strangers and I am strange. Now this is strange and the ravings of a lunatic. However, it makes sense to me so that people cannot see the good sense here are also strange. The strangers are amongst us and some are very clever. Essentially they have taken the good-heartedness of the British people and thrown it back in our faces as they think we are fools. Perhaps they are right as our elites encourage this sort of behaviour and persecute those British who object to this charge towards community cohesion. They come in all shapes and colours, bringing their alien ideologies and religions into our lands, whilst we stand idly by as we are afraid to be called a racist or xenophobe or Islamophobe. A lot of people are terrified of these words as they go against the core doctrine of multiculturalism that is the testing ground to see if you are any of the above. How can you prove the unprovable? Quite easily actually, as a racist or Islamophobic act is predicated on the word of those who have supposedly experienced it, no matter how or where or even whether it is a truthful statement. The strangers are taken at their word as they have experienced something only they understand. So the perpetrator of this heinous act is guilty even if she or he is innocent. This seems fair enough to me, however I'm a lunatic, as all of you who read my various statements and writings know. Should this be proven in any none-approved court by manipulated public opinion, or even in the actual courts of our lands, then you are hounded out of your job, put in jail, have your door kicked in, and are even accused of being a terrorist and dragged out of your house by the police. Your computer is confiscated as the thought police are looking for evidence. I must say I find this totally justifiable, and people who object to this have something seriously wrong with them and need to be re-educated in the most severe way. Do not worry, I'll help with this noble project as I am cohesive with our great society. I just want to help. Also, God help you if you happen to be a nationalist and a member of our party, or come to that of the EDL. Even though you are none of these things, are guilty of no crime and just want to express your democratic rights. You have not even the right to march against this in your own country. Our country without the threat of violence from the police or the Marxists or our peaceful religion of tranquility. In my humble opinion, they have every right to arrest, kill, dismember or persecute any of us for disturbing community cohesion. After all, we must all stick together, must we not? And if you do have an objection to this, you're not cohesive enough. Do you get my logic? I certainly do, I think. This is with the consent of the established order that can be actually staffed by the strangers and the junior elites who are just nice people, really. Very caring white indigenous people who carry none of the burdens of being called any racist name tag at all, even if they are British born and bred. However, they also have the additional burden of being white and have to prove at every junction that they are ideologically perfect to the strangers and their equally perfect masters. Some of whom are strangers and are just assumed to be perfect. I know I'm not perfect yet, but I'm working on it with the aid of the BBC and watching EastEnders and also Coronation Street. Believe me, this is hard work, but being a patriotic sort of person, I will attend to this heavy labour or whatever it is. I want to become a reformed person and no doubt the BNP will help me with this onerous task. Nick, can I have a grant or something to help me? I prefer cash, but a good kick up the backside might help with my heavy load on the road to perfection. They should be an inspiration to all. They are perfection or at least in the process of becoming perfect idiots. In fact, a significant number already are. I know as I used to work with them and nothing has improved, thank God. Work itself is an alien concept to some of them and an imposition on their human rights. They may have a point here, though I fail to see it. Why? I don't know, and here again I fall down on my preconceptions of the nature of people. I am just a miserable failure in terms of cohesion or even common sense. Why, oh why did this have to happen to me? Someone please explain, and no doubt I'll get some critical comments, but it helps me in some strange way. Strangers love this as it proves their righteous pretensions towards being persecuted by bigots. This whilst they steal either by stealth through the public services, getting proffered jobs in them and generally taking advantage of everything they've never paid for. This is great as we enslaved some of them about 200 years ago and it's now payback time. Nor their parents in most cases who just send the money they earn or steal to Pakistan or some other country. Billions and billions of pounds, then we give them foreign aid as well. How generous, how nice of us. We should be proud of ourselves for contributing in this way and there's no contradiction here or even implied. It makes my heart swell with pride and makes me want to vote Tory for the rest of my miserable days on the dole. I'm looking forward to my 0 hours contract or the work camps they're setting up. What a jolly good idea, as I happen to like breaking up rocks and penury. Perhaps they could even just starve people like me to death. After all, it's all I deserve. They could also include all the old people, so at least I have some company. This would also help reduce the national debt. They never intend to contribute unless they have a job they're actually not qualified for, with a nice boss who is forgiven for being white until such time as he or she is no longer seen or needed or suddenly sees what a mess they make of things, and then he or she is labelled as a bigot, or even worse as described in the beginning of this strange thought. Some of the poor bastards who inherit this mess are even worse off, as there is absolutely nothing they can do about it. They're guilty of something and this must be obvious to the most non-judgmental of people. Somewhere in their thought processes they are guilty, xenophobic and Islamophobic. This is not 1984, this is now, and they are guilty of doublethink or not thinking correctly enough. They are guilty of thought crimes, as we are, and I await a knock on the door from the thought police, as should all the listeners of this piece. He or she is then replaced by devious means or by reorganisation, and the leading lights of the strangers are appointed even though they may not have the mental acuity to do the job. However, this does not matter, only equality matters, and this is the litmus test for perfection or promotion. This is an organised system that is staffed by common purpose and its acolytes. Of course the multi-cults of the system kick in as well and knock the lights out of anyone who disagrees. They're fully justified in doing so in my double-think opinion. Now we have the added delights of another influx of strangers from the continent, the Roma, who will steal just about everything they can get their hands on, and it isn't nailed down. Mind you, that is progress. We as a party want more, a progression we must promote to achieve perfection. Something I have yet to achieve. Thanks, IMNOKUFFAR, a truly strange reading, but one in which we all find a true nationalistic cohesion of thought. And finally, as a reward, 72 virgins. An 18-year-old suicide bomber blew himself up and appeared before Allah. He said, "Oh Allah, I did your bidding, but I have a request. Since I'm only 18 and spent all my time in terrorist training school, I've never been with a woman. So instead of 72 virgins, who also won't know what to do sexually, can I have 72 whores?" Allah regarded him for a moment, then replied, "Actually, the 72 virgins are here in heaven because arseholes like you murdered them before they could experience the pleasures of sex. So you're here to service them. Since they're virgins, they're quite sexually ravenous and frankly, you'll be on constant, exhausting duty." The bomber responded, "Well, I guess I can live with that. How hard can it be to keep 72 women satisfied for all eternity?" Allah replied, "Who said they were women?" You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynne and I wish you all a very good night.